rooted.com. By the way, we are delighted to be here. This is a beautiful event. So we'll now open time for a debate. Reservists against cyber attacks. Patriotic collaboration to save costs. As you probably know, a few months ago, an initiative was published in the press at that time. It was assumed that it was the Popular Party in Spain that came up with the initiative to organize a group of cyber reservists, and that's how they were called. To be honest, the details on that initiative we don't know any about yet. This is in a very early stage. Okay, in other countries they've been doing these things for quite some time. But anyway, this has hit the headlines several times. On whether there should be a fee, on whether these people should get money in exchange for their services, how they should be organized, what sort of duties they should carry out, and so on and so forth. So in order to talk about this topic, we have organized this roundtable, and we have a number of exceptional guests. In alphabetical order, Roman has reminded me to do so. We have Adolfo Fernandez, in the red jumper, co-founder of cybersecurity's think tank. He's an extraordinary professional, holds a computer science degree from the Autonomous University of Madrid. A very experienced professional with very good criteria in his work. We also have another exceptional guest, Carlos López de Medina. He is a 2-star general in the Cyber Command of Spain. What could we say about him? He is the first commander-in-chief of the Spanish Cyber Command. Together with his excellent team of collaborators, he is right there in the middle of the storm and collaborating with our project. He will give us his opinion. We also have Enrique Ávila. Enrique, good afternoon. Director of the National Excellence Center at the Autonomous University in Madrid, also a specialist in this field. I am not a civil guard myself.
En Google entonces, estamos mal.
Soy miembro de los cuerpos TIC, soy miembro de los...
No, I'm a member of the IT division in the Spanish government. I'm sorry about that, Enrique, but I know you are a great supporter of this initiative on cyber reservists. We have another exceptional guest, Javier Candao. Good afternoon, Javier. He's a lieutenant colonel in the Spanish Army and in charge of the National Cryptology Center of the Spanish government, and also an exceptional cryptologist himself. A long-standing track record. And then we have Mr. Jorge Davila. Good afternoon, Jorge. Jorge Davila is a senior lecturer at the Informatics faculty in the Complutense University of Madrid. He has been working on cybersecurity for a long time. He's in charge of the cryptology laboratory in that university, and he's also an instructor in this field. He carries out assessments for people working in this field. And last but not least, we have Roman Ramirez, who is co-founder, a member of the leading team at RootedCon, a wise man, someone that knows a lot about these things. And let me introduce you to my colleague, Luis Fernandez, who is the editor of the SIC magazine. He he will be moderating this debate with me. We have agreed to have all of them speaking very briefly for 3 or 4 minutes to tell us about the initiative of cyber reservists. And by the way, let me introduce a minor change. I think the first person that should speak is Carlos, the General. I think you're the most suitable panelist to tell us where we are, where we stand, and based on your comments, define the scope. This is the first surprise. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me. It is a pleasure to be here with all of you. I'll be using my time in order to give you some context and references. These are my ideas, by the way, okay? This is my opinion. And the most interesting thing here, I'm sure, will be the debate itself. The concept of cyber reserve, I like it. It's a good idea. Not without its difficulties, not without its challenges, of course. In order to ensure that it is effective and useful, we need to ensure that it is properly organized. The first thing I'll do is to perhaps change the title for this roundtable so that I can convey the first message. Instead of cyber reservists against cyber attacks, patriotic collaboration to save costs, I would suggest another title, which is similar. Reservists against cyber attacks, patriotic collaboration in case of crisis. That's how I would choose my title. 3 aspects I would like to focus on. First of all, what do we need that cyber reserve for? Secondly, how we could organize such a thing. And finally, how we would pay the cyber reservists. I'll be very brief. I'll just give you the key elements in my opinion. So why do we need the cyber reserve to start with? It is very important to be aware of the fact that this cyber reserve is not a replacement for resources that must be there on a permanent basis. There are resources, I'm not going to tell you about the size. There is a set of resources that must be there all the time. The cyber reserve, from my point of view, is a complement to those resources in case of a crisis. So this is not for daily duties or daily operations. This is to account for extraordinary events. Those events for which existing resources are not enough or are not suitable. No need to say that in order to ensure that the cyber reserve is effective, especially in case a crisis hits when almost nothing works, it is essential to be trained during so-called normal periods. So that's the answer to the question, why do we need the cyber reserve? How can we organize this? Allow me to say that from my point of view, a hybrid approach is the best approach. Part of the cyber reserve will be comprised of professional military personnel, and part of the cyber reserve would be civilians. Some ideas from me in a few minutes. You know full well that cyberspace is all about operations. Okay, it's the 5th domain in operations. What do? We plan, we lead, and we execute operations in cyberspace. When talking about executing operations, I would use cyber reservists who are military personnel. For the rest, it doesn't really matter whether they're military personnel or civilians. And for everything else, that is a huge area of work. When we talk about military and civilian reservists, we need to ensure that all of them have the corresponding security accreditation at different levels, depending on their profiles. And then talking about military and civilian personnel, we need several things. We need to meet several requirements. We need a recruitment process in place. We need a training period. We need an activation whenever it corresponds, and regular updating of the training they receive. For those of you who know about the voluntary cyber reservists in the armed forces,